Hi everybody, this is Saul Tash Maths Tutor, and today we're going to be covering nth term problems and the nth term. So the first thing here is the learning objective, which is understanding nth term problems, nice and easy for you. Okay, so what are you going to need? Well, you're going to need really fairly simple, and you may not think that this is necessary, but it's totally necessary for nth term problems. Some times table stuff, nothing massively complicated about that, and also an ability to add or subtract. Now, although I'm down here in the bottom right hand corner of your screen doing all this sort of work, the action is going to be, hang on, the action's not going to be, the action's over here. That's where the action is, everybody. The action's over here. That's where the maths is taking place. Without any further ado, let's crack on. So let's look at an example. And the example I'm going to give you is if I have a sequence of numbers, and the sequence is 5 and 8 and 11 and 14. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the difference of these numbers. And some of you may be reasonably familiar with this technique, I don't know. And the difference is actually, well, what do I have to do to get from 5 to 8? Well, it's plus 3. And then from 8 to 11, that's plus 3 as well. And there's a pattern forming here. And 11 to 14, and that's plus 3 as well. So much of mathematics is patterns. But here's the key thing. Because I've got these numbers here, well, that means that this is just the 3 times table. And you may be thinking, what's he talking about? But it is. It's the 3 times table, but it's sort of modified. And this is the modification bit, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, what should the 3 times table, what should it look like? Well, it should be 3, 6, it should be 9, and it should be 12. So what have I had to do to the 3 times table to make it into these numbers here? These numbers here. Well, the answer is, well, what did I have to do to the first 3 here? Well, I had to change colour. I had to add 2. And what did I have to do to these numbers here? Well, I had to add 2 as well. So all I have got is that idea that I'm going to add 2 to the 3 times table, and I should have the answer. Now we have everything, lovely people, for the building blocks of the nth term. And this is it. This is the way to write it. What times table have I got? So in other words, I'm going to put in the times table first, 3. And then because it's an nth term problem, I'm going to put the n there. And then what did I have to add or subtract to make my sequence from that 3 times table? So this sequence here, well, I had to add 2. And guess what? That is the nth term. It's no harder than that. Let's try another one. Hang on. And there will be a little bit of a jump as I stop the video for a second while I change it. There's no point in you seeing me erasing all of the stuff. Okay, so let's try sequence, which is 12, 15, 18, and 21. So let's just go through our routine. What's the first thing? What's the differences that we're finding between these numbers? Well, the difference is plus 3 and plus 3 and plus 3, which actually is the same as last one, isn't it? Almost. It's the 3 times table. 3 times table. So what should the 3 times table be? Well, it should be 3, 6, 9, and 12. Okay, well, what have I had to do to get from 3 to 12? What have I had to do to get from 3 to 12? Well, I've had to add 9. What did I have to do to get from 6 to 15? I had to add 9. That's the thing that I'm. Get rid of that. That's a rubbishy 9. That's the thing I've had to do. I just had to add 9. Okay, so now I'm going to write my nth term out. So it's the times table that I'm using, which is going to be the 3 times table, n, because it's an nth term problem. And what was the difference I had to add to modify that 3 times table? I add 9 to get to my sequence up here. Again, that's it. Let's try, let's do another one. So let's now try 7, 15, 23, and 31. Let's give this one a go. Okay, so straight in, what's the difference? Well, 7 to 15 is 8. I'm hoping that the rest are going to be like that. 15 to 23, yeah, that is plus 8. And 23 to 31, yeah, that's plus 8 as well. So it's the 8 times table. I suppose I could write that as the 8 times table. That would look a bit more mathematical, wouldn't it? So what is the 8 times table? Well, the 8 times 8 times table is 8, 16, 24, and 32. I forgot what the 8 times table was myself then. And the next question I'm going to ask myself is, how have I modified this 8 times table to get this sequence up here? Well, I had to add 1. Sorry, add 1? I had to add 1 at all, did I? Not add 1. I had to take away 1. How did I get from 16 to 15? I've taken away 1. 24 to 23, and there's a pattern running there, isn't it? So that means I can now write what times table am I using? Well, I'm using the 8 times table. It's an nth term problem, so I bang in an n there. And then what did I have to do to modify that times table? Well, I put in a -1, and there you go. That's the nth term for that particular sequence. And look, I'll tell you what I'll introduce here is you may be asked in the exam or the question paper, well, now you've worked out the nth term, what's the I don't know, what's the 10th term in the sequence? So you'll be asked, what's the 10th term? Well, all I do here is I use my nth term equation, my nth term here, and I go, well, easy, it's 8. The number I want is the 10th term. That's the number. So that means that that's relating to this n here, which means I now put in times 10, and then I take away 1. Well, the answer to that is 80 take away 1, which is 79, and that's the 10th number in this particular sequence. Okay, one more, which is a fraction example, and you'll see that this is fairly easy as well, I hope. Now, the key to fractional nth term problems is not to freak out about it, it's just to have a little look at it. So here we go. If I've got a half, and I've got 3/4, and I've got 1, and I've got 1 and a quarter, what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to find the difference. So differences between these three numbers. Well, okay, a half to 3/4. There's also, you either know it, that it's a quarter, or it might be that you understand that a half as an equivalent fraction is 2/4. So 2/4 to 3/4 is a quarter. Or you might also spot that 3/4 to 1 is a quarter. And I suppose the easy giveaway, a clue in here for you if you're not quite sure, is 1 to 1 1/4 must be at a quarter. So that means that we're dealing with the quarter times table. That's the quarter times table, TT times table. The next thing I'm going to look at is, well, what's my what is that quarter times table? So it should be a quarter. Then it should be 2/4, which we know is a half. Then it should be 3/4. Then it should be 1. So what have I had to do here to go from what should be the quarter time table up to a half? Well, I've had to add a quarter. I hope you're sticking with me, everybody. I really do. It is exactly the same as what we've been doing beforehand. It's just this whole quarter half thing. It takes a little bit more of clutching in the mind to do, but it's exactly the same. So anyway, let's go for because we've now got what we need. Let's go for the nth term problem. What times table was I using? I was using the quarter times table. It's an nth term problem, so I just bang in n there. And then what did I have to do to get from the times table up to the sequence I wanted? Well, the answer there is I had to add a quarter. And that's it. There isn't much more to tell you people, apart from though it's a nice, simple, easy introduction into nth term problems. And just to reiterate, the learning point was to learn about nth term and what it meant. And I told you the things that you needed to generate that were knowledge of times tables and your ability to add and subtract. So this has been Saltash Maths Tutor. I hope this has been of some use to you. All I can ask you to do now is if you want more of these videos or want to see them when they're produced, well, subscribe. If you've got any comments, good or bad, or need things explaining further, well, just post those comments. And if you need help, just ask and I will assist as best I can. This has been Saltash Maths Tutor. Have a good day.